to the Authentic Joe Show. My name is jolenajohnson. My first name is Joe, and my middle name is Lena. Joe means love, and Lena means light. And my goal with the Authentic Joe Show is to bring more love and light into this world. I have a very special guest today, and we're talking about a very sensitive subject he's willing to speak on. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest, Mr. Shawn Lovings. How are you today?
I'm doing fabulous in yourself, Joe.
Good, thank you. I want to talk about it. I want to give you plenty of time to tell us. You spoke to me and said that you became homeless after your divorce. And I said, how long? And I was thinking you would say a couple days, a couple months. You said 3 years.
Yes.
So please tell us what led up to this event and what happened.
Well, man, this is wow. I've never really talked about this publicly before, but I think, like you were saying, I think some people really need to hear the journey of a man who sacrificed for his daughter. Like, the fact that I divorced my ex, I wasn't leaving my daughter. I mean, the words and terms of thrown out was abandonment and all of this. I'm like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I love my child. I'm gonna be here. It is what it is. I ain't going anywhere. So, but in that process, like I shared with you, for working with Upscale magazine and all of that, with 9/11 taking place, and they cut back. You know what I'm saying? So I was let go from there. The VP of the company wanted me to start my own business. So I started a company, Core Consulting Marketing Group back then, and still just trying to figure it out. Never had a company before. So I'm like, okay, so I gotta, so basically I am going to be a consultant for the magazine. They can no longer cover my costs as far as paying me and everything else, but I could still work with my clients and do these other things. Still was rough because, hey, you ain't got a steady income coming in. And, at that time I chose to leave my marriage for personal reasons. And, the world started falling apart. I had no family in Atlanta that I knew of at the time. So I had all these friends that came, like mostly women, who were like sisters to me, because I even get that question, man, you ain't hitting that? No, dude, I need her. That's like my sister. She, I'm able to sleep on this floor, that sofa, because they knew how much I cared about my daughter. And then they saw my emotional breaks because I was hurting at that moment. So they took me in and, allowed me to, stay in some spaces. And, I had some dark moments, you know what I'm saying? And just trying to fight through those dark moments were all about my daughter, and the eyes of, I always share with people, is that when she was born, she didn't open her eyes, but then at that night when I held her while I was feeding her, she opened her eyes. It was like 5 minutes of just piercing through my soul, when she just looked at me, like she didn't blink. And I was just like in tears, man, like, wow, this is like, I helped create this. And not knowing that those eyes would be the eyes that saved my life when I had those dark thoughts and moments of just being broken and just trying to figure life out in a place that, I was growing in and didn't really know a lot of people, but knew some people, was pretty tough.
Okay, so what I heard you say was you went from having a job with a steady income and benefits and things like that. And then because of 9/11, you were in the entertainment industry. And I remember a lot of things changed because people were focused on different things. They weren't focused on entertainment. They were focused on safety. Dollars were changing. The whole environment changed. Our whole world actually changed as a result of 9/11. And so then you had an opportunity, but you had never been an entrepreneur and never prepared to be an entrepreneur. So that was a struggle. And then I think I also heard you say, or I'm going to imply, you had friends in Atlanta, but you were from St. Louis. And while you could have probably come home to St. Louis and found family, you did not want to leave your daughter in Atlanta. Is this what happened?
That is exactly it. We have a mutual, my cousin, your friend, my cousin Fred. I mean, him and my mom was like, man, you need to come home. And I was like, I'm not leaving my child, man. You had a father. You know what it was like to have a father. My mother, same thing. Your daddy was there for you. I did it, and I was gonna break that cycle. And now, I'm gonna tell you something. I literally said, I'll be homeless before I leave my child. Be careful what you say. Now,
Yes.
I mean, just talking to people, I was like, man, I'll be homeless before I leave my child. And I damn if I wasn't homeless before.
Okay, so tell us what led to the homelessness. So you were living when you moved out.
I moved out. A college buddy of mine, my boy Dana, you know, I stayed with him for a little bit. I bounced around. I broke it down. I stayed in 18 different places through the course of that 3 years. And it was all because of just, you know, just trying to get back on your feet. I mean, it was rough trying to find a gig, and, you know, then, you know, having a car, and, you know, I slept in the car for a little bit. You know, man, not even having a lot of male support. Again, people were like, that's why I'm so close to a lot of my female friends, because they were there for me. You know, they understood. I share all the time is that I used to be, I mean, I sat on boards while going through this. I sat on the board of the National Black Arts Festival in Atlanta, which was one of the biggest art festivals in the world, you know, and I sat on the marketing board for that. You know, they didn't know. I'm still coming up in there in suits and clean, but I still needed to function. I found, you know, solace in all of that because I was so broken, but they afforded me the opportunity because all they saw, and here's go back into where I wear suits all the time. People can't judge you when you clean.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They don't judge you the same. If I start looking like I'm, you know, broken down and, you know, dirty and, you know, and I start looking like my situation,
yes,
I may not have still been able to be in those rooms. I was still going to balls. I went to the mayor's ball. I was still doing these things because I was in the entertainment industry, and that stigma of, you know, oh well, you know, Shawn, you know, he missed the upscale. I still rode that coattail. I was still swinging on it,
right,
just so I could still eat. If I broke down to you, I owe the Hampton Inn and Suites, the Embassy, because that's how I used to eat in the morning. You know what I'm saying? If I had a suit on, I had a bag, everything, I would roll up in there like I had a paper that was old. I would, good morning, how you all doing? Being kind to people. They can't judge you if they can't see you right. If they see you looking another way, excuse me, sir, you don't belong here. But I just rolled right on there early in the morning. I would eat a full breakfast, take some fruit or whatever with me, and some bread, just to get through the day, and until I figured it out. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it was a rough go.
I think this is very important because I've spoken, of course, I've been married and divorced myself. And I've heard a lot of single women who are of a certain age, and they've often complained about men saying, oh, well, they only want to take me to this little restaurant, or they don't want to spend any money, or those type things. And it has really bothered me. And I've said, hey, what's his circumstance? Oh, he's divorced. And then, okay, does he have any children? Yes. Are they under 18? Yes. Okay, so maybe he lost everything in the divorce. Maybe the wife got the house. Maybe he has child support. Maybe he had to reestablish himself and buy everything again. Maybe he's going through a transition. Maybe he's actually broken and needs counseling. However, he has not even gotten himself to even be able to admit that he's broken and seek out help because he's a man. And maybe you can be his peace if you try to be understanding and don't focus on the materialism. And sometimes that's well received, and sometimes it's not well received. Right. So I would like you to tell me, it took you 3 years. So I think that's really resourceful of you to figure out how you were going to eat. And I think it's amazing that you talk about kindness and what you looked like. I think a lot of times men can get away with so much because they dress in a suit, and there's a certain amount of confidence and a certain amount of, I don't know what we give to it. We think success when we see a man in a suit. Okay. So why did it take you 3 years of being homeless? Was it because you needed to find an actual job, or were you just so far in the hole? I mean, what happened? Because that's a long period of time.
Yeah, well, you know, man, it's so much of that. But like you were saying, when it came to dating in that period, what a lot of folks fail to realize is that you look at when a man, when you divorce or separate, whatever it is, what you normally see is the man go in the fastest. He finds someone else and he's right into a relationship. Boom, just like that. Okay, I was that guy too.
Okay.
And not wanting to share a lot with that person, and still feel loved and still feel just some comfort in that position that I was in, was what that really was playing out to be. Wasn't totally 100% transparent at that moment, but was selfish. Just wanted to feel what I needed to feel some type of wholeness, some type of love, some type of just, because I love being in a marriage. I love being in a relationship. I mean, I do. I'm a relationship guy, but just through that transition and so forth, still trying to be on the scene, to feel complete. I was losing myself, in that process. So I sat on another board for another organization, and that sister was like a sister to me too. Her name was Sharice Pace, and I love her to death because she showed me the ropes and so much, and she took me in also. I mean, because she was staging homes, and I would stay there and in retrospect to the situation I was going through, but then to turn right around, and she opened up an opportunity for me to work with another board member that I had just became a part of the board, and they introduced me to my man William, who was working in the school district, and he gave me the opportunity. Well, he kind of showed me how to navigate through to become a substitute teacher.
Okay.
And so that's how moving into just so I can make money, so make something steadily.
Yes.
And so that's what happened. I moved into the education sector when the industry was really doing some funky things with, closing their doors on agencies, and brands were shifting. In those 3 years, like I say, I bounced around in a lot of places because I didn't have the transportation at that moment until I was able to save up to get a car. Then it was like, it was just stages. You just had to build. The car then later turned into, still staying with some different friends, who didn't mind. And then as I got a little bit more, was able to, get my own place again. And it was look, let me tell you how good God is. I got to share a God moment in this.
Okay.
Because I was staying with a friend of mine's brother, and he didn't share with me all the information about him about to get put out of his place. And I was at work. I'm coming to the spot. He calls me literally in transition. And he said, bro, they put our stuff out on the road on Linux. I'm sitting here like, and I'm gonna tell you something, Joe. I was like, bro, it's cool. He said, man, people trying to take our stuff and da da da. I'm like, all right, bro, it's cool. I'm on my way. I'm literally getting off the highway right now. As soon as I got off the highway, I got a phone call from a friend who I helped get an apartment through a friend of mine who, worked in the industry, and, she worked in whatever. I can't even think right now, real estate, but she helped her get into this place. That sister called me at that moment and said, Shawn, I'm moving back in with my man and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to break my lease. I say, we'll move in. We'll sublet. We'll move in. And she came, and it was just right down the road. It wasn't far from that point. I said, I need you to come sit with our stuff, and I'll move my stuff into your place. Literally that same day, I moved into that very nice apartment. If you know where Ashford Dunwoody is in Atlanta, I moved into a very nice complex. I let him move in with me too, because I ain't gonna hang you. You looked me out. You just wasn't on top of your stuff and blah, 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 whatever, but I got you. So he moved in with me also, and was like, boom, that same day, we still had somewhere to lay our head.
That is such a blessing. I have goosebumps.
Man, that you don't understand. Man, people always, write it down, make it plain. I wrote down so many times and it didn't come out that way. I still structure and figure out, and God led me through every step of this. I am all the because and it's so many more things that happen. And I was just like, wow, this is a God thing, baby. It is.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely. Okay. So what Can you give me some advice to a man who is considering? Okay, no, before I go there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was important for you to remain in Atlanta, although it was more difficult on you to be with your daughter. And one thing I do know about
Yes.
you is your father was not present in your life, but you made a commitment when you saw your daughter being born and you saw those eyes to be with her. And so you mentioned to me that you were a graduate of Jackson State and she followed in your footsteps. So
Yes.
during this time, were you actively going to her activities and things like that so you could be present? And what happened how did you see her since you were homeless? And did she know?
Well, no, she didn't know.
Mhm.
And a great story in itself right there, because those friends of, I didn't want my daughter to see different, man, you know, and it's crazy Fred calling me right now. Um, I'm sorry, but in those moments and times, um, I didn't want my daughter seeing different women in and out of my life, but those were just friends, nothing physical between us. But I didn't want her to see different women. So
Right.
whoever, the time that I had to have my daughter and I was without the place where I was staying, she would always see that same friend. And that friend was also from St. Louis, Dion. She always looked me out. So whenever I had to have my daughter, Dion would let me stay at her spot. And
Okay.
I'm sorry for hitting the table, but Dion would let me stay at her spot.
Uh-huh.
And it was just like, okay, cool. So my daughter never knew. But I just felt like, you know, those father daughter dances and all that stuff that would come, I would not have been able to stomach her and she going with her uncle, which her uncle's a good dude, you know. We good to this day. I mean, but I personally couldn't take it. So that's why I was like, I'm going to be there with whatever when it came to sports, graduations, because I
Mhm.
knew what it felt like. No one, I didn't feel that. I look up at high school graduation, you wasn't there. I looked at college graduation, you weren't there. I look up at some of the achievements that I've had in my life, you weren't there. I didn't have anyone to talk to through anything. I had to figure all this out, you know, and that's what a lot of men have to go through, self-made, and you know, having a good woman on their side that support them through these things, and we grow together and learn together. Yeah, but it was tough. It was rough. It was rough. But yeah, my daughter was my ultimate sacrifice. I wasn't leaving her side until I wasn't leaving Atlanta until she graduated. Like I say, graduated in December. I moved back to St. Louis in May. So there it is. You
There
know,
you
that was
go.
my promise.
Okay. Okay. So can you give if there is a man who is even contemplating divorce, or maybe he's already divorced and he's on the verge of being homeless, can you give him three statements, pieces of advice, words of encouragement, if he's going through that right now and looking at this video?
Well, I mean, definitely a praying brother, because you know, I yelled to God a lot during that time, and in my prayers, I was hurt. Um, Try not to be a user. You know, be
Mhm.
authentic about your situation with those closest to you. Because one of the things I said to people was that the reason why I didn't tell a lot of my boys or certain people is because I didn't want you to let me down. Because if you let me
Mhm.
down, then because I viewed friendships as like almost like brothers and sisters, because I was the only child. So those brothers and sisters, if I shared that with you and you did nothing, or you said, "Oh, you can do it," and you didn't help,
Mhm.
I will cut you. That's just the Scorpio in me. I'm gonna cut you, and I'm done.
Mhm.
And I didn't
Mhm.
want to give anyone an opportunity to disappoint me. So it's just pick and choose who you share your story with
Okay.
in the process. You know, but you have to make that
Mhm.
discernment that who and what that person in your life is a good for you to help you.
Mhm.
And then the other thing is, man, it's easy to say, easier said than done, and we all are different. But there's a level of patience that you have to
Mhm.
have that you feel like you can get through this situation.
Mhm.
Um, it was rough. I'm gonna share a real quick crazy story. I mean, I just happened to look up on my wall because it's in front of me. I won Best Dressed Man for Esquire magazine while homeless. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? And it's like a competition. I won. I'm looking at the article right now on my wall. I laminated it because that's a part of my story. Is that my
Mhm.
daughter even said it? She was like, "Dad, And she was with me. I got pictures and everything. She was with me at that particular moment at Macy's in Atlanta. They held a competition for Esquire magazine. And the editor, fashion editor, overheard me talking to someone. They don't even know I'm homeless. I had on some Ferragamos with holes on the bottom with inserts. And I said, yeah, you can't see what the bottom look like, but on top, they shining, baby. So again, it goes back to they don't know your story as long as you standing. But when you lay down and give up, everybody can see all this around you. I mean, from the bottom of my shoes to the dirtiness that it took to get back up and have dirt. No, man, I'm not going to let you see that. So I just didn't operate that way. So I kept it moving until I was able to get back on my feet. And I stayed creative. I stayed in pockets doing certain things, throwing parties and to make a little money here in Atlanta. And, you know, I did a lot to climb back up out that hole.
Thank you, Shawn. I really appreciate it. I'm going to do my final thoughts now, but I'm going to ask you to stay with us for just a moment. Okay. So I'm going to put you in the studio and then I'll come back with you. Okay.
All right. So
vulnerability is something very special and it's something we can learn from. But oftentimes our pride or our shame can hold us back from being authentic. I thank our guest, Mr. Shawn Lovings, today for sharing part of his journey. And I hope it encourages you to either be a better friend, be more understanding, or perhaps actually do something that will help another person in their time of need. It's one thing to say something, and it's another thing to take action. So I encourage you to be your best self. I encourage you to be kind, as Mr. Lovings so often says. And I encourage you to pray and ask, and sometimes plead if necessary, so that your life will be transformed because you deserve it. Know that you are worth it. And if you are a man who's going through a divorce, I know it can be tough, but don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your children. And when you admit what's going on, it will make a world of difference in your life. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Authentic Joe Show, and we'll see you next time.